Hey guys, how's it going? I found some information today that really piqued my interest and I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to discuss it with you. So, this is from the Pew Research Center. According, uh, according to this article from them, two-thirds of Americans give priority to developing alternative energy over fossil fuels. A new Pew Research Center survey finds that 65% of Americans give priority to developing alternative energy sources, compared with just 27% who would emphasize expanded production of fossil fuel sources. Support for concentrating on alternative energy is slightly up since December 2014. At that time, 60% said developing alternative energy sources was the more important priority. So as you can see, there's a slight uptick, but it's still it's still going up. It's still going up though, which is I find to be a good thing compared to the 27% who would prefer prioritizing fossil fuels for some reason. I don't know what the hell that's all about. Um, so I'm not really sure what that is about. I don't see the benefit in prioritizing and expanding on fossil fuels. And it's for a number of different reasons. And this is why I'm happy to see there's a slight increase. I wish obviously it would be better if there was more people, but it is what it is. It's just a Pew Research poll. But I will explain why I think we should be focusing more on alternative energies. So the first reason, the most common reason that you would probably expect someone to say, so I'm just going to say it anyway, is climate change, global warming, the environment, that kind of stuff. This is usually the first kind of argument that's brought up for pro alternative energy sources. And there is some validity to it. According to most scientists, climate change is partly human made, this particular climate change time period that we're living in. And it's also partly natural from the earth. However, human involvement is speeding it up and could potentially make it really bad. But let's just assume that climate change is inaccurate for some reason, like the data is wrong or it's just not true, like we don't know the full story. We as in scientists do not know the full story as of right now, and a new hypothesis comes out in a couple of years saying like, oh well, like human impact on climate change isn't as severe as we thought it was, or like there's other reasons to why the climate is going higher and stuff like that. And that's just assuming that that happens. So, or just assuming, let's just pretend like there is no climate change at all. Is there still reasons to focus and prioritize more on alternative energy compared to fossil fuels? The answer is yes. Yes, there is. Reason number one, we stop depending on foreign countries for their sources of energy. So we aren't dependent on other countries for their sources of energy for us to use. We're able, with alternative energy sources, to not only not depend on other countries, but also to be able to rely on ourselves as a country. And even down to the individual level or to the family level, where a single house can be powered remotely thanks to solar panels and wind power, and someone, if the laws are in place and the freedom to do so is in place, do not have to live on a power grid and they can live off the grid. For some people, this is a good thing, and I agree. People should be given the ability to be able to live off the grid if they want to. If they want to put solar panels on their house to get their own energy from the sun that way, or use wind power or other types of sources of getting energy, then let them do it. I don't see what the problem is. So that's one reason, is that to lessen our dependence on foreign, getting our resources from other countries. We should be able to, as a nation, we should be able to be self-reliant. And that's, yeah, self-reliant. Another reason is because of the longevity of alternative energy. Fossil fuels, the quantity of them is getting smaller and smaller as every year passes. Some people are even arguing at this point that we either are getting really close to peak oil, or peak oil is going to happen within the next couple of decades, or I've read some, I don't remember this off the top of my head, but I have seen stuff claiming that we have already reached peak oil. Now, I don't know which one's true. If I had to guess, it's give it a couple more decades, and then we'll reach peak oil. That's what I'm guessing at this point. But the point I'm trying to make though is whether or not we're going to reach peak oil sooner or later. That eventually we're going to run out of oil, we're going to run out of coal, we're going to run out of all these fossil fuels a lot faster than we're going to run out with alternative energy. Alternative energies, solar power, wind power, nuclear fusion, nuclear fission, not fusion. Fission. I prefer that over fusion, and other types of energy like biodiesel and like using human waste and other stuff like that, and just all these other types of energies. These energies sources can last a lot longer than fossil fuels. If I want to be really generous about it, I would say fossil fuels are going to be here for at least a couple more centuries. Maybe like one or two, maybe three. But solar, wind, water power, I didn't even mention water power yet, nuclear fission, other types of like bioenergy. These are types of energy sources that can last us a very long amount of time. I'm talking thousands of years. I'm talking millions of years. The sun is still going to be here for a very long time. Wind is going to be here for a very long time. Water is going to be here for a very long time, as far as I can tell. It's not going out anytime soon in the next couple of centuries. Compared to fossil fuels, that will go out. Another reason is because this relates again to the longevity of the fuels. The longer we wait, the more we put our country and civilization, global civilization, in jeopardy as a whole. Because the longer we rely on fossil fuels and don't make a change or an adaptation to alternative energies, the more difficult it's going to be in the future for a number of reasons. One, less amounts of fossil fuels. Two, a higher demand of fossil fuels. The supply can't meet up with the demand because the demand is growing. We have a growing world population, and the supply can't meet that demand. That means prices are going to go higher. That means fuel is going to be less accessible to less people. It means that it's just going to be, there's going to be less and less of it, and I don't want us as a civilization have to wait and procrastinate decades and centuries down the road, relying solely on fossil fuels to the point where it's, oh shit, we're barely, we got a couple decades left, or even horribly years left, and now we're scrambling to just get to try and convert everything into alternative energy sources. I don't want to see that happening. Worst case, I mean, I've watched documentaries about this. You can probably find some documentaries about it, like online or like through video on demand services like History Channel or other sources. Basically, like we rely so much on fossil fuels that if it got really bad, like the world's amount of fossil fuels was so low, worst case scenario is countries are going to start going to war over it. People are going to start fighting one another over it. It would get really, really bad. Like, there's gonna be chaos. Like, it's just really bad. Chaos ensues, war ensues, violence ensues, destruction ensues, and if we don't think this is not if people out there don't think this is not going to happen if we rely on fossil fuels, I mean, just look at history. Look at reasons why war's been fought in the past. One of the reasons why war's been fought in the past is on resources, and one of those resources, not to get too off topic, is also water. But that's for another video. I'm talking right now about fuels, like alternative energy versus fossil fuels. So those are other reasons. I just gave out 2 to 3 other reasons why we should switch over from fossil fuels to alternative energy fuels. And I didn't even mention global warming. I did not mention global warming once in those other reasons. I did not mention climate change once in those other reasons. So there's other reasons that we need to start looking into alternative energy sources. The future is not going to be in fossil fuels. The problem with these companies that we have right now, like Exxon, Mobil, and BP, is they're thinking in the here and in the now. They're not thinking a couple decades down the line. They're not thinking a couple centuries down the line. They're thinking in the here and the now. Now I can understand that because they're thinking about the here and the now. They're focused on their profits. I totally understand that. It makes perfect sense. There's nothing wrong with wanting to make a profit because they're a business. However, that being said, these companies also need to start thinking about the future as well, because they need to be thinking about their bottom line. They need to think about how their business is going to adapt and change in these coming decades and centuries. Because if they want to survive as a business, they need to start thinking about how are they, like I just said, how are they going to adapt. Yeah, so that's just, so basically they need to start thinking about the here and now. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind in the dust. There are other companies out there right now. There are solar-powered companies. There are windmill power companies, electrical companies, Tesla Motors, water powering companies, all sorts of other smaller companies. These are the companies that people should be investing in, because these are the energy sources of the future. These are the businesses that are going to thrive in the future. So in terms of companies you should be investing in, you should be considering seriously investing in those. And you know what? You don't have to invest in it. At least take the time to do some research and look into it more. That's what I got to say about it. A quick note here from this Pew Research poll is that conservative Republicans prioritize expansion of fossil fuels, and then what that means is that more Republicans that identify more as moderate or more left-leaning have a tendency to actually emphasize those developing alternative sources of energy as well. There's an ideological divide. I'm reading this from the Pew Research article. There's an ideological divide in these views within the GOP among moderate and liberal Republicans and Republican leaners, who account for 36% of all Republicans, and Republican leaders who sampled 65% prioritize developing alternative energy sources, compared with fewer 20% who prioritize expanding production from fossil fuel sources. By contrast, conservative Republicans back the expansion of fossil fuels over developing alternative energy sources by a margin of 54% to 33%. Large majorities of both liberal Democrats, 88%, and conservative and moderate Democrats, 77%, prioritize alternative sources. So I'm happy to see that more and more people are, okay with the idea of moving away from fossil fuels. So it's been over 10 minutes now of me talking, and I'm going to wrap up this video. I will provide a link to the Pew Research the Pew Research article in the description section. I might even just put it in the comment section too. That's so people can read the article for themselves. Let me know what you guys think. I'm curious to see what other people think as well. Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm right? Tell me why. I'm curious to see what people have to say about this. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video.